We're here at syndicatednews.net with Costas Panayotakis. He's teaching at New York City College of Technology. He's a sociologist, and he's going to talk with us about Greece. Professor Panayotakis, are you there?
Yes,
Welcome to syndicatednews.net.
thank you for the invitation.
The crisis in Greece. Give us your synopsis.
Greece has been facing a debt crisis that is part of the broader European and global capitalist crisis. And it received a bailout package 18 months ago. It has had to follow very harsh austerity measures. These measures have not worked according to the predictions of the government and the European Union and the International Monetary Fund. Apart from having devastating effects on people in Greece, because they didn't work out as planned, now a second bailout is necessary. People in Greece are seeing that these measures are very unjust and ineffective, and that's why resistance has grown against them. The recent political crisis in Greece is related to that. The government was weakened. It felt that it needed more legitimacy, and there was an announcement of a referendum, but the European Union basically did not like this idea because they felt that the Greek people might vote down the recent European deal. And they basically blackmailed Greece and said, either you vote the deal with the new austerity measures, or basically we may throw you out of the Eurozone. And now what we see is that political elites in Europe and Greece are trying to push this deal through. They threatened to throw Greece out of the Eurozone, whereupon the Greek government basically called off the referendum and is trying to find a way of pushing these new austerity measures through the parliament without actually giving Greek people a chance to say whether they agree with that, with these austerity measures that will determine their lives for at least the following 10 years.
Costas, why don't you tell us about Remaking Scarcity, this book you wrote, Remaking Scarcity, From Capitalist Inefficiency to Economic Democracy, the Future of World Capitalism. Give us an idea of that book.
Part of the book discusses the current crisis, and it points out that this current crisis illustrates the failings of capitalism as an economic system and of mainstream economics, which basically claim that capitalist markets can be trusted to use scarce resources in an efficient way that does not involve waste. And what I argue in this book is that this is in fact not the case, and that if we really want to use scarce resources in a way that is humane and ecologically sustainable, we need a society that is consistent with the principle of economic democracy, which is basically the idea that all people should have an equal say over the goals, priorities, and operation of the economic system in which they live. So I discuss what economic democracy might look like as a system, and I discuss specific practices around the world that could move us in this direction. Things like democratically run workplaces like we see in Argentina, or the practice of participatory budgeting, where citizens through democratic assemblies have a say over how public spending is allocated. So I think part of the problem we're facing today is that in capitalism you have a few people, they control the economy, their decisions determine our future, they oftentimes make disastrous decisions, and instead of being held accountable, they oftentimes receive bailouts. And this is what is happening in Greece today. This is what is happening around the world more generally.
Do you see a dissatisfaction in the public, and you see a connection between that and Occupy Wall Street?
Yes, I think there is a growing dissatisfaction and anger around the world. People are revolting from, the Arab world to Greece and Europe more generally, and of course the United States as well. I think the Occupy Wall Street movement is a very hopeful development because it channels people's understandable anger in a more productive direction. Before the Occupy movement, a lot of people's anger was channeled by the right wing and the Tea Party movement. That I think basically the effect of the Tea Party movement was to obscure the real causes of the economic problems we're facing by looking for scapegoats, public sector workers or immigrants and so on. While the Occupy movement is really pointing to the root of our problems, which is the growing inequality that has accompanied the economic model that we've followed for the last 30 years. Deals with the root of the problem. It has had such great resonance around the country and beyond.
I noticed that there was a great deal of violence in Greece in the last few years during the riots. Do you see that happening here?
We've seen some amount of violence here coming from the police, for example, in Auckland, where you had people being seriously injured as a result. And in Greece as well, what you have is the vast majority of the protesters are, of course, peaceful. But the police in Greece has oftentimes resorted to brutality, and it overuses tear gas excessively. Just a couple of weeks ago, a protester died from a heart problem, and of course, kind of tear gas that Greek police use has been linked to heart problems, cancers, and so on. So I think what you see is that whenever governments follow policies that do not address the real problems that the citizens face, they will lose support from the population, and they will be much more likely to use repressive measures, to use the police as a way of intimidating people from protesting, as a way of controlling people's understandable objections to policies that basically victimize them.
Now, if you were Prime Minister Papandreou, what steps would you take to correct these problems in Greece?
I think Greece does have some leverage over Europe, because if Greece falls, this will have great repercussions for the Eurozone and for the global economy. We've seen that European leaders are prepared to blackmail Greece and threaten it and say, if you don't do what we want you to do, we'll throw you out of the Eurozone. But I'm not sure that Europe can really afford to do that. So what Greece needs, in my view, is a government that is willing to represent the interests and the needs of the majority of the population and call Europe's bluff and say, no, we are not going to do that because this is not just, and this is not even working. And what we've seen is that the European leaders' stubborn insistence on draconian austerity measures has not contained the crisis. Instead, we see that the crisis has been spreading and deepening around the continent. So now, of course, after Greece, you had Portugal, Ireland, now Italy, Spain, and even France now is facing increasing pressures from the financial markets.
We're here at syndicatednews.net with Costas Panayotakis from New York City College of Technology. He's written Remaking Scarcity from Capitalist Inefficiency to Economic Democracy, and the book is available here at syndicatednews.net.